The show starts in 3, 2, 1.
There goes that man's jockstrap. Oh my God, did you see that?
America's team? Yeah, right.
Oh, baby, it's a big day in sports.
There's nothing like battling it out with your teammates all season long to go win a championship.
Green Bay's got it this year.
Huge move for them. I think it's going to be a game changer.
We have a lot to talk about this busy week in the sports world. Welcome to the In a League of Their Own podcast.
The In a League of Their Own podcast is brought to you by Golf Kicks. Screw your shoes. By Canadips. Rep Sports. By Smooth My Balls. And by Streamer Loot. Check out the In a League of Their Own merch line today. Welcome to the show. Let's see what Austin and Collin are diving into today.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 100 of the In a League of Their Own podcast. In celebration of today's 100th episode with our 100 facts, it's only fitting to talk about one of the greatest performances in professional sports to date, Wilt Chamberlain's 100-point game. Wilt put up 100 points over the New York Knicks in a 169-147 win on March 2nd, 1962, shooting 36 of 63 from the field and 28 free throws. So shout out to one of the GOATs of basketball, Mr. Wilt Chamberlain.
Yeah, something I don't think that'll ever be done.
Yeah.
Again.
I mean, you see your 50, 60-point games now and then, but for how labor-intensive the game is nowadays, I feel like the stamina wouldn't be there for somebody to come close to that anymore.
I think Kobe's 81 might be the closest that we see in a long time, if ever, to getting close to that. But yeah, shout out to Wilt.
Sounds good. Then a lot to unpack from a busy weekend of sports. What's the latest over in the NFL as far as some injuries and some headlines out of there?
So Packers cornerback Jair Alexander is to have surgery, going to be placed on the IR, suspected to be back hopefully in 4 to 6 weeks. I know early reports said that the surgery is supposed to happen, I believe, tomorrow. And obviously they'll take a look at it after the surgery and hopefully it goes well and everything. But yeah, he's going to be having surgery. He's going to be out. Kansas City Chiefs running back Clyde Edwards-Helaire sustains a knee injury, which is an MCL sprain. He's going to be out a few weeks. Also, another big hit, Tampa Bay Bucks linebacker Levante David out 3 to 4 weeks after sustaining an ankle injury. And then, unfortunate luck for Saquon Barkley. Just happens to roll your ankle on a play that literally can happen to any single person. And I don't know, did you get to see the picture of it?
Oh, yeah, how ballooned up immediately.
Like, so bad luck for him. Hopefully he gets back because it seemed like he was just getting back to the old Saquon before all of his injuries started.
Yeah, I mean, some other hits on that Giants team. Daniel Jones goes down with a concussion after diving for a play at the goal line. And then they also lose Kenny Golladay, the former Lions receiver. So Giants in a tough spot in the NFC East, really being a team that's falling behind. Look like there's going to turn things around this year. Daniel Jones gets another crack. They get Barkley back. They get some firepower in Golladay. They get Kyle Rudolph, the tight end from Minnesota. They had a lot of things going on that Giants team. And Sunday's loss to Dallas was an L on the box score and an L in the locker room, losing these guys. So hopefully they can all get back soon. Daniel Jones concussion, so could be back as early as next week, depending on how quick he goes through the protocol. Could be a week or two that he's gone. It all depends on how that goes for him. But yeah, Giants are in a tough spot right now.
Yeah, and then the Cardinals ended up pulling out a win, which we'll go into when we break down the games. But they lose a big offensive weapon, tight end Max Williams, carted off after a knee injury. No indications of how bad that is yet, but it did not look good.
Yeah, I mean, they pull out again, we'll when we get to that, they pull out the W in a big division win. So good for them to stay undefeated on the year. But yeah, a lot of injuries kind of going on this week. I guess diving into another one, over to a team that finally got back in the win column, the Steelers. They will be without one of their top receivers, Juju Smith-Schuster, for the rest of the season after dislocating his shoulder and undergoing surgery. It says he's out 4 months, which 4 months from now is Super Bowl time. So unless the Steelers are in the Super Bowl and Juju's on the perfect path, we won't see him for the rest of the year. So a Steeler team that struggled with injuries all year, been struggling to fight it out the last couple of weeks, finally got a win this week, but again, lose one of their top receivers.
Yeah, and I forgot whoever reported that, but they've fucked up. I think it was Ian Rappaport, because he originally reported that surgery was successful, yada, yada, yada. Then a tweet underneath that, it was yet to have surgery, whatever the case may be. And then there was one more tweet that came out that said he's expected to have surgery tomorrow, I believe the case may be. But yeah, he's done for the year.
Yeah. And then going back to Thursday night's game, Rams Seahawks. Seahawks kind of in a downhill spiral as well. After Russell Wilson suffers an injury to his middle finger on his throwing hand. It turns out that he ruptured a tendon as well as tore up some ligaments in his finger, and he's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks. Big loss for that Seahawks offense. He basically is the heart and soul of that team. You lose him, and now they have a losing record. They sit 2-3. So we'll see if Geno Smith can kind of lead the ship in the right direction and hopefully stay close to that 500 mark until Russell gets back. Otherwise, things are going to be tough for them.
Yeah, I was hearing that I thought that originally it was 4 to 8, and then after his surgery was done, I thought that some people were saying that it could be on the back end of 6 to 8, is because basically he had a dead middle finger completely, like nothing left in it, and that's why it was like hanging there in all the pictures and stuff. So the physical therapy and stuff to have to actually go back through and rebuild your muscle strength in that finger, especially if you're a quarterback, that's usually your last finger leaving the ball. So that has a lot of control on what you're doing and not having anything there. But watching what Geno Smith did when he came in, I think he's completely capable of leading this team in the same direction as Russ, just with a little less firepower. But he does do a lot more running. And then one more injury we forgot to mention, Kittle. He's put on the injury reserve.
Yeah, and kind of looking at the Seahawks schedule moving forward, I mean, they have an opportunity to, again, kind of keep afloat for the next couple of weeks. They play the Steelers next Sunday night football. Again, the Steelers team dealing with injuries. They've been wishy-washy all year. Week after that, the Saints, hit and miss every week as well. The winless Jags, and then the Packers. Packers and Cardinals the 2 weeks after that. So those are going to be 2 tough games after that. But the next 3 weeks looking forward, if they can put together a good game plan for Geno Smith the next couple of weeks, they have an opportunity to win four, maybe 5 of their next 6 to 8 games. So long as, again, the rest of the team steps up and can do their part.
Yeah, as long as you don't turn the ball over. I mean, that team is very good. Just like I know, Justin Fields, when they have a full week to put the game plan in, how good he looked. I don't know. He's got the weapons around him, and that's another team that could potentially be one to watch out for.
For sure. I guess going into some other NFL news, one thing that's been trending over the past few days here is the head coach of the Raiders, Jon Gruden. Some emails were leaked of a conversation that he had with someone back in 2011, referring to an NFLPA representative with a racial comment that was taken, I guess, out of context in a way that Gruden obviously didn't mean to come off that way. Regardless, it's out there. The NFL is investigating whether or not they're going to move forward as far as disciplining him. Yeah, kind of another locker room. Again, same thing in Jacksonville with that whole thing with Urban Meyer, kind of losing your trust in the guy at the helm of the ship. The Raiders start 3-0. Since then, they're 3-2, so they're kind of trying to figure things out again. So, and then adding this on top of that, Raiders are in kind of a difficult spot right now, trying to sort things out.
Yeah, just the one wrench in this whole situation is that he was not employed with the NFL at the time that this whole thing happened. So the NFL really has no jurisdiction over punishing him for something that happened when he wasn't even working there.
Yeah.
So they ended up hiring this guy knowing without doing any background checking to find this out until now it's coming out 10 years later after the NFL did a shitty job if they allowed him to become a head coach knowing that this was out there. If now they're going to try to turn back the wheels of time and go back and say, oh, now we're going to punish him. Like, you can't do that. And it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. But yeah, locker room is lost in Oakland or in Vegas.
Yeah. It kind of, I forgot that he had that stint between Tampa Bay, or no, he started in Tampa, went to Oakland, and then now he's back in Vegas.
And he was at ESPN for being an analyst for that whole long time until he just got his $100 million deal a couple years ago.
Yeah, so it's interesting that when the NFL was bringing him back in, if this email conversation was a hit against him, that they decided to sweep under the rug and say you're good to go. If they decide to come back on that, then that's, like you said, bad on the NFL's part. Makes them look like just as much of a clown as Jon Gruden if the investigation comes back as, oh yeah, this was a red flag. A couple years ago when he was looking to get back in the NFL, we didn't think anything of it. But now that it's out there for the entire world to see, now the NFL either has to play dumb or come back on their word and look even more dumb. So as much as the NFL is investigating Jon Gruden, there should be an investigation of themselves to see how they let that slip through the cracks. If they're going to make a big deal out of it now, they should have made a big deal out of it back then if it was known. Otherwise, if they didn't do anything about it back then, they shouldn't do anything about it now. Yeah, it's going to be interesting how the next couple of days turn out.
Yeah, exactly. And another thing with that whole thing is, like, last night during the Sunday Night Football game, Tony Dungy and other people all who worked with him all said that they've never heard anything racial or anything like that. And he's just a straight shooter. He says what it is, and it is what it is. And whether it was a joke or what the email said wasn't what it could have been. With the internet, it could be doctored or it could have been mistyped, yada, yada, yada. There could be so many different excuses, but it was what it was. And now for the NFL to make a big deal out of it, I really think it's a joke.
Yeah. What was taken out of context is Gruden said, what's his name? Darrell Williams. I can't remember his exact name. Said that he has lips the size of Michelin tires. Now that was taken racially out of context when from Gruden's side, maybe the guy was running his mouth and he said, oh, he's got big lips. He doesn't know when to shut his mouth. Like when I read that, if you read it take race out of the equation, that's how I would understand that is, oh, this guy's got big lips. He doesn't know how to shut his mouth. Saying he runs his mouth too much.
Racially.
Yeah, then it's racially targeting.
Because you could do that with a lot of things if you look at it racially. you can really turn a lot of things like that. And we're getting to the age of that where people are fucking taking charge on the internet for shit people said and are taking it completely in the wrong context, whether it may be or it's not. And it's a shitstorm that we have on our hands.
Yeah. Yeah, again, as their whole Urban Meyer thing is kind of winding down, but at the same time, he's still trying to regain the trust back of that organization and his players. Now you have a very similar situation going on over in Vegas. So, yeah, NFL is kind of a shit show right now. I mean, and the games have been good at least. So, I mean, the on the field stuff has been great to watch, but the off the field stuff has definitely been a shit show lately. And the last bit of NFL news I had was that week 5 was a historically bad week for kickers. This is the first week since the extra point was moved back in 2015 that kickers missed 10 plus field goals and 10 plus extra points in 1 week. I want to say it was 11 missed extra points and 12 missed field goals on the week, 5 of which came from a single game of our Packers, which we'll get to in a little bit. But yeah, whatever was going on in the NFL this week, kickers are just not having a good day.
Only 4 games were inside.
Yeah, I know wind, at least in Cincinnati for that game, wind was blowing pretty good. Like there was swirling winds there.
Same with the Bills-Chiefs game last night.
Which both kickers went perfect in last night's game, though. So
yeah, I mean, sometimes you got it, sometimes you don't.
Yeah, but
that's why it's sports.
Yeah. If you had any other points to throw out there before we start diving into our games for the week?
Just one. Antonio Brown became the fastest wide receiver ever to 900 receptions. So, shout out Antonio Brown.
And that's amazing too, given that his stint of injuries and time away from the NFL, that would have been probably he would have did this.
Ago.
Yeah, he would have did this 2 years ago if he would have kept going. So,
isn't that insane though?
Yeah. I mean, props to him to kind of figure that whole thing out and still come back and show, hey, I'm still the same AB that I was.
I think he's comeback player of the year.
Yeah. I mean, obviously Dak Prescott's immediately thrown in that equation, given that
season's not over though.
Yeah. Again, dissing the Cowboys.
Even though he should get it because he did break his fucking leg and barely was able, not sure if he was going to be able to play. Comes back where AB's shit was off the field, so he was in control.
And he played last year, so technically he didn't even. It wouldn't be a comeback year for him.
But wasn't he suspended for the first 6?
I think that was in New England. When he was in New England.
Got cut after the second game in New England.
That could have been.
Because he only played 1 game, caught a touchdown with him while all the allegations were going on. Then it was like the next week he played, had maybe 1 catch, no catches, and then I want to say they cut him.
I'm going to look it up. Because I mean, again, it was just with playing, switching teams, all that, it kind of becomes a gray area as far as where he played, when he played. Try to go back to last year here, 2020.
Yeah, he had an 8-game suspension in 2020 due to burglary and battery charges.
Yeah, so his first game,
and then in 17
year,
and 18, he was suspended for sexual assaulting his former trainer.
So it's showing all of his games last year were with the Bucks. Starting, looks
after
like
week 8.
Yeah, November 8th was his first game in Tampa. Yeah, I mean, nonetheless, he's always been fun to watch when he's on the field. Seems like, I mean, there hasn't been a word said about him off the field as far as anything going on there. It seems like he's just shows up, plays football, goes home, minds his own business now. So
Yeah, and it's cool that he gave a shout out to Ben Roethlisberger as well for being one of the great quarterbacks that he was able to play with. Because everybody thought that those two had beef and all of that stuff, and it's cool that he actually, now that it seems like he's finally come around the corner. Thanks, Ben.
yeah. Well, sounds good then. We'll jump into going back to Thursday, I guess, since we didn't talk about that game at all. Thursday Night Football, Rams get the win on the road 26-17 in a game where, again, Russell Wilson went down. Game started super slow, 7-3 at halftime. Rams turned it on in the second half. What do you think about the Rams going forward after their slip up last week against Arizona?
I mean, I think they're a good team. I just don't think that they're a great team. Matt Stafford, it's going to come down to him, whether he's on or whether he's off, because that whole game, basically 25 for 37, 365. He, in the first half, I forgot what his stats were, but they were terrible. And he was missing throws that, I don't know. I feel like they played their best game of the year against the Bucs when they beat the Bucs. And I don't know if they're ever going to be able to. Yes, they're still a good team. They're probably going to make the playoffs, but I don't see them reaching that point again where they'd be able to beat another super stellar team like they did a couple weeks ago. But like I said, I think it's all going to come down to Matthew Stafford and how he plays during the year. We know their defense is one of the top in the league. It's going to come down to Stafford.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, for me, the biggest question mark is that defense too. Not ranked in the top 20 when a year ago they were one of the top defenses. Seems like they still struggle with the run at times. Their defensive coverage has been pretty decent. I mean, they only hold Wilson to 152. They get 2 picks as well, so they got the turnovers that they needed to get. I mean, anytime in the NFL you hold a team under 20 points, your defense had a good outing, but it seemed like more of, rather than the Rams forcing errors, it was just mistakes that the Seahawks made. So yeah, I mean, hopefully Russ gets back soon. Again, that's going to be a really big question mark for the Seahawks moving forward at 2-3. I mean, they're down at the bottom with the 49ers now, who are also 2-3, so they're not down there by themselves. But when you have an undefeated 5-0 Cardinals and a 4-1 Rams ahead of you, both teams that you've lost to, it's going to be hard to turn things around.
Yeah, and I do believe Russell Wilson, I think, is in the last year of his contract as well.
Yeah, because there was talks of him obviously in the preseason leaving.
Yes, there is. He's got a 2-year opt out after this season where he can opt out he can opt out after the season of a 3-year, $107 million, $26 million in dead cap the Seahawks should carry. I've seen a lot of places are saying if Geno can carry this team, Russ should leave and go pick a spot where he wants to go play. Denver, you have a handful of teams that could definitely trade up for Russell Wilson.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Denver, like you mentioned, won. Philadelphia, still wishy-washy. Down in South Beach, Miami, Chicago, obviously they have Justin Fields, but preseason, that was Russ's one of his top spots he wanted to go. Vegas, Derek Carr, yes, he's having a good year, but it's still early. If he falls apart, that could be a spot he'd want to go. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see if he does move. If Geno can, I mean, if you can get a quarterback to win you football games at half the price, why wouldn't you take that? So,
Exactly. And this is the first injury we've seen of Russell Wilson. For how much he takes a beating, how hard he plays. Who knows if this isn't the first wheel or first part to fall off the wagon.
yeah, that's very true. I mean, that's just the Seahawks team as a whole. Obviously, hasn't been the same since they've been to their 2 Super Bowls.
Since they lost their defense, this team has not been the same.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, then moving into our Sunday games, starting off with the early game that happened over in London. Jets and Falcons. Falcons get the win 27-20. Moved to 2 wins on the year, getting both wins against the New York teams. Just another kind of lackluster day from Zach Wilson.
I didn't even watch it.
I caught the end of it. I mean, it was fun down the stretch. Just again, it being a close game, they're always fun to watch no matter what. With the Jets kind of driving, had a chance to tie things up at the end. Falcons get the stop, win the game. Again, Wilson, 192 yards on the day and a pick. No touchdowns there. Kind of, again, a lackluster day for them there. Cordell Patterson doing what he does. He's the heart and soul of that Falcons offense now. Matt Ryan had 300 plus yards on the day, 2 touchdowns. So, I mean, he's going to continue to do that with the weapons he has. Cordell Patterson, Kyle Pitts, Calvin Ridley, like all those guys he has to throw to, they're going to get their touches. Really the biggest takeaway for the Falcons this game was finally getting to see Kyle Pitts pop off for the first time in his career. 9 catches, 119 yards, and his first touchdown of his NFL career. So the Falcons aren't dead in the water. I mean, yeah, both of their wins are against 2 New York teams who are struggling, but at 2-3, they're not dead in the water in that NFC South.
No, absolutely not. And then moving over to the Patriots and Texans, David Mills almost pulls off a historic win over the Patriots. I believe at one point they were up 22-9, and then they collapsed. There was a handful of terrible calls that they did, and they just ended up pissing the game away. And in Bill Belichick fashion, made the adjustments in the second half, ended up turning the tides around, and they ended up with a W. Mac Jones, that's a big win for him.
Yeah, it is. Again, against the Texans team that is not terrible. Nope. They start the year 1-1. Again, Tyrod Taylor at the helm. Looks like that team might be in the mix in the AFC South, which at 1-4, they still are in the mix in the NFC South. They only sit 2 games back now from the Titans. And then obviously the Colts and Jags are pretty much neck and neck with them right there. So again, very similar to the Falcons. Houston Texans at 1-4, tough spot to be. But again, if you can turn things around, you're not out of it yet.
And who knew that they had Davis Mills sitting on the bench, who'd go out 21 for 29, 312, 3 touchdowns, no picks, gets picked. Like, Bill Belichick's supposed to be this guru for rookies. He didn't turn over the ball one time. Like, he's playing good football. I feel like that Deshaun Watson shit around their whole organization is really what I feel like bringing that whole team down.
Yeah, I mean, really any team, like, again, going back to Jacksonville, they've been unable to win a team. The whole thing going on in Vegas, they've lost 2 straight and now have the whole Jon Gruden thing on their hands. Like, anytime you have off the field antics that bring your team down, it kind of affects your culture. It's hard to have a winning culture when you're off the field is a losing culture. Like, you have to have both aligned to obviously put together a good football team. So again, sucks for the Texans to lose a close one. But I mean, yeah, good for Mac Jones to get another W under his belt. Moving into our next game here, we have the Vikings Lions. Another heartbreaker for the Lions. Second time in 3 weeks, losing 19-17 on a last second 50+ yard field goal. I mean, watching that post game interview of Dan Campbell talking about his players and getting emotional, saying he really was like pulling for these guys to get their first win of the year. Like you could feel that. And like, as much as the Lions are kind of a laughing stock, like Dan Campbell, he's the guy who's going to turn that ship around. You can just feel it. His passion for that team, what he's going to do. I mean, again, at 0-5, obviously not going to do anything this year, but hopefully things turn around for them soon.
I was just gonna say, Dan, like, quit crying, dude. Like, I understand that you really give a shit, but also every single person that's on your team gives a shit. Like, you're at the top of the top level of doing what you do, and you get paid money to do it. So, yeah, you should care that much. And I do take away, like, yeah, that's awesome how he spoke about his guys, but at the same time, it's like he almost like was crying, like wanting like a sob, like wanting to feel empathy from like the media members to be like, oh, it's all right, dude. That was a good game though. You're 0-5. I do think this team, like you said, I do think this team does have some resiliency and a lot of fight. They're not going to go 0-17.
Yeah. And then on the other side of that, the Vikings.
Him and Kirk Cousins and fucking what's his name, Zimmer, getting into a full-on shoving, screaming match at the end. That was awesome.
That was hilarious. It just looked like Kirk was fired up, and Zimmer's just one of those calm, like keeps himself, guys, get the fuck off of me, like kind of thing.
Two ends of the spectrum. We got to see that game of emotions.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean the Vikings moved to 2-3 again, kind of in the heart of that NFC North still. But still very inconsistent. Only 19 points of offense when you have Kirk Cousins, who still looks good. You have
no Dalvin Cook really hurts a lot, though.
Yeah. I mean, Jefferson had another 100-yard plus game.
Thielen had a fucking huge catch when he needed it.
Yeah, to get them in field goal range at the end of the game. Yeah, I mean, these division games are always fun, no matter what division, whether you're the best division in football or the NFC North, which is kind of one of the lower divisions right now as a whole. You're always going to get good games like this.
Any given Sunday. That's what football's known for.
Moving into our next game here, Eagles on the road at the Panthers get a huge W. Again, another team that started 3-0 and now falls to 3-2. Eagles hold on, get a big turnover at the end of the game when the Panthers are trying to march down the field.
Their defense won them the game.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, they gave up 100 yards rushing to Chuba Hubbard. Their 3 picks that they got, crucial, and that was the game for the Eagles. I mean, Jalen Hurts on the ground, if that's what he's got to do, run those little balls into the end zone and score their touchdowns. And if their defense is going to stop teams, that's a pretty good recipe for winning. Yeah.
And the first game that we saw kind of Sam Darnold struggle, again, 3 picks on the day. That's obviously a big turning point there as well. Eagles win the turnover battle. Again, looking at the stats, the Panthers pretty much dominated in every category. More first downs, better third down efficiency, more time of possession. All that looks good and all, but again, the turnover battle in a game, again, 21-18, a very low scoring game as far as standards are now in the NFL. It's whatever defense can get that last stop. And like you said, Eagles defense won them that game.
Yeah, and especially to lose the time of possession battle that bad, and you're still one less punt that you've given up and one less sack. Shout out to the defense. That defense showed that they are capable of winning games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the Panthers, again, 2 weeks ago, 3-0, looking like one of the best all-around teams in the NFL. you as the Eagles hold them to just 19 points on the day, or 18 points on the day. Again, like I said a couple minutes ago, in the NFL, in a league where you see 30, 40 points scored any given Sunday when the offense gets rolling, if you can hold them to half of that, under 20, your defense had a really good day. Moving on to the next game here, Saints on the road in Washington get the W 33-22. I mean, really, the first game we got to see Jameis finally ball out. Had almost 300 yards passing, which usually he's in the mid 100s, upper 100s.
They're letting him throw finally.
Yeah. Again, against a really good Washington defense. Heineke,
Rough day.
yeah, too inconsistent after coming off a week where they get the win on the road against the Falcons. He balls out, has one of his best career days, follows it up the week after with no touchdowns, 2 picks. Saints again get the W, but still one of the most inconsistent teams in football right now.
Yeah, you never know what you're going to get with them yet.
Moving on here then to the Titans on the road visiting the Jags. Titans get the win 37-19, a game that felt kind of close early on, and then
King Henry.
Yeah, and then King Henry takes over, 130 yards, 3 touchdowns on the ground. I'm trying to think, what was the record he set? Having 600 yards and 5 touchdowns through the first 5 games of the year. It was something along those lines. He joined Eric Dickerson, Barry Sanders, Emmitt Smith, and somebody else. He's only the 5th running back to do so, which is pretty good company to be in. Against, again, a Jags defense that really can't stop anything on the ground. So Titans moved to 3-2 on the year, top of that NFC or AFC South.
And King Henry's on pace to become the first running back ever with 3 straight 1,500-yard seasons and 15 touchdowns.
That's incredible.
Yeah, before the game, he had 510 yards and 4 touchdowns through 4 games. And then what did he have?
Today? Or yesterday?
Yeah, what did he have yesterday? He had 3 touchdowns, so he's at 7 touchdowns now.
130 yards, yeah.
And 640 yards. He's on pace, dude. That's crazy.
It's impressive whether it's 1921 or 2021 to be putting up numbers like that, but it's even more impressive nowadays because of the pass first that the NFL is now, to have a running back that is able to be that dominant for 29. I'm sure he had more than 29 touches on the day between his if he had the pass catches too.
He had 29 carries alone.
Oh, he didn't have any catches. So yeah, just 29 touches on the day, but yeah, still just impressive that he's able to do that in the NFL of today.
And the Jags stink.
Yeah.
They might go 0-17.
Mm-hmm. Which again, they're creeping up on that 29 losing streak record. They're set at 21 now. 8 more games to go to tie it. They could be the team that could break it if they can't turn things around. Again, being in that AFC South, I don't know if they played the Texans yet. If they played them once, they have to play them at least one more time. They're going to have to be all in on that game to try to get their 1 win of the year.
Ooh, they play the Dolphins next week, so that could be one.
Mm-hmm.
Seahawks, loss. Bills, ass whooping. Colts, never know. 49ers lost. Falcons, never know. Rams lost. Titans lost. Texans, Jets, Pats, Colts. So they have a chance to get like 3 or 4 wins.
Yeah.
Obviously, every game they have a chance to win, but like just going off of what we've seen so far, if we can expect that from
But
those teams. Yeah, they have like chance for 3 wins.
But those wins again against the Texans, Colts are all based on those teams staying where they're at and not getting better. If
Yeah,
those teams get better, those turn into ass whoopings for the Jags too. So
yeah, Dolphins, Colts twice, Falcons, and then the Texans.
mhm.
So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens because, like you said, Falcons are heating up.
Mm-hmm.
2 in a row.
Moving in next, talking about the Dolphins being on the wrong side of an ass whooping yesterday on the road in Tampa. Tampa gets the win 45-17 as Grandpa throws for 411 yards and 5 touchdowns for the first time in his career. Amazing game by the Bucs. Again, Antonio Brown, 2 touchdowns on the day, fastest to get to 900 receptions. Hold the Dolphins to only 17 points.
They didn't get a turnover yesterday, did they? Dolphins?
They had 1 pick and 1 fumble lost. So Dolphins had 2 turnovers on the day.
Yeah, they didn't get any. Their defense didn't get any turnovers.
No.
Yeah, streak ends there.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, they were at 19 straight games with a turnover.
Yeah, I mean, again, another struggling
Dolphins come to an end.
Yeah. And after a brief glimpse of, hey, Jacoby Brissett still got it, maybe he doesn't. At least not against the Bucs defense.
And Tom Brady, that offense, without Gronk doing that, imagine with Gronk, he probably would have had 600 yards passing.
Yeah.
Like, that offense is becoming very, very terrifying. And I guess we'll see if they can keep excelling.
For sure. And then next here, going into one of the more painful games to watch yesterday, our Green Bay Packers get the 25-22 overtime win on the road to move to 4-1. Roger.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say, so funny. Like, I was just gonna explain what happened to me because I watched the game kickoff at your place, got home, and I laid down and I was watching it for a little bit, and then I remember end of the game, Bengals guy was about to kick the field goal for the win, and I nodded off, woke up, Crosby was kicking for the win, fell asleep, woke up at 6:30, and then I looked at the score and I was like 25-22. All right, Crosby ended up making that field goal.
Yeah.
Then I go and they were showing all the highlights at halftime of the Sunday night game. And I was like, oh my! I
realized there was 3 more field goals after that.
I missed so much craziness from the time that I nodded off.
Yeah, I mean, I watched that game from start to finish and just on my feet, sit down, fuck. Oh, fuck. It's just the nonstop from the final 2 minutes of the fourth quarter. Took until 2.5 minutes left in overtime of just back and forth.
Two good teams.
Yeah, it was a really fun game to watch at that point. It became comedic when it got to that point where neither kicker could make a field goal. McPherson doinks it off the post. Second time, thought he made it, celebrating. Turns out went over the top and outside the goalpost. And then Crosby just hooking him left all day. But again, shows the resilience of the Packers and the trust in Mason Crosby, one of your captains for a long time, and a vet. Him and Aaron Rodgers have been the heart and soul of that team, the 2 longest guys who have been there. LaFleur talked after the game, saw Crosby over in the kicking net before that 4th and inches call, says, hey, what's going on? Crosby says, I got this. He's like, all right, go do it. And that's just, there no questions about it. Again, up until that point, had missed 3 straight field goals. He gets it done. What was it? You die the villain, or you live long enough to be the hero, and that's exactly what Crosby did yesterday.
Yeah, it don't matter if you miss 7. If you make the game winner, it's all that matters. And flip side, everybody knows the NFL, the Devontae Adams, Aaron Rodgers connection. How about Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase? Like, incredible.
Scary.
Like, it's very fun to watch. It reminds me of a young Randy Moss catching passes out there. Just how incredible of an athlete that kid is.
Mm-hmm. And in a preseason where, he's dropping all the balls, he's going to be a bust. On his pace to be rookie of the year at this point.
Hands down.
Yeah, it's going to be a scary combo coming up again. It was a really good game. Both defenses stood the test, got turnovers to get the ball back to their playmakers when needed. Rodgers 1 pick on the day, Joe Burrow 2, and that was, I mean,
and all of those interceptions, the quarterback shouldn't have thrown the ball.
Yeah,
like those were apparent, taking a risk type of play interception.
Mm-hmm. And the one on Rodgers' part was just he threw to the inside shoulder instead of the outside shoulder. If it's outside shoulder, Adams catches it or it's incomplete, you punt it.
And Burrow did that to Amos on the side where he had the guy. If he just would have threw it over his head, it would have been a completion, but he threw it right at his chest, and Amos was literally right there for the pick.
Mm-hmm. And then the second one, Devondre Campbell, again, where at post-game Rodgers talked about, he said he's talking to MVS. He's like, how the heck was this guy on the street? Like when we picked him up, it's like, so he's kind of tipping the hat to the Packers to say they made a good move going out and getting this guy because he was a free agent. Nobody wanted him. And it's funny. There's 3 interceptions in the game. Looks like those were turning points. I don't even remember if any of those turned into points. I know the Devondre Campbell one because it was a pick. Right, Bengals win the toss. Joe Burrow throws the pick. Oh, it's game over. They're in field goal range. Well, and that was bad play calling on the Packers' part there. 1st and 10. If you go out there with Crosby, he would have made that field goal. But because they lost, they went from 1st and 10 to 3rd and 16. That extra 6, it barely squeaked off the left upright. 6 yards closer, that ball goes in. So it's bad play calling on the Packers' part where you run the ball twice for negative yards, make it a longer field goal for Crosby, where if he would have just trotted out there on 1st and 10, he would have put it through with that exact kick.
But that's a fucking risky move, 1st and 10. Pulling the chute, saying, all right, go make it, because then if he misses it, Bengals go right down the field and they kick a field goal and it's over.
Which ended up happening anyway, but they missed it. It was a crazy game. Again, as much as I was laughing, it was a fun one to watch. And again, one of the few games this year, only 2 penalties on each side. A very
clean game.
Yeah, it was a very clean game. Moving on next to Broncos-Steelers game. Broncos on the road in Pittsburgh. Again, Pittsburgh bounces back, gets their first win since the week 1 upset over Buffalo. Teddy Two Gloves back after his injury getting pulled out early last week. And Big Ben still got it.
So the last episode, I just think that offense, granted losing Juju, that kind of does hurt, but they're hot at wide receivers. Like Deontay Johnson, Claypool, like their offense looks like they're hitting stride. It looks like they finally found the right amount of carries, touches to get Najee Harris, let him do his thing. If this team can stay healthy, their defense is still one of the top in the league. Their offense was their woe. This is a huge victory for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, and again, putting up 27 points against a really good young Broncos defense. And then on the flip side, as I've said already a couple times this episode, you hold the Broncos to 19 points. So hats off again to the Steelers defense. Moving on to Chicago on the road in Vegas. They get the big road victory, 20-9. Again, Vegas, another 3-0 team 2 weeks ago, falls to 3-2. Chicago improves to 3-2 as they will host Green Bay next week, which will be a really fun game. Fields, again, still somewhat hit and miss, but
he's a rookie.
Yeah, he got it done.
Yeah, I mean, if he can progress how they're expecting him to progress, only team that I feel sorry for in this division is the Lions, because there's 3 very good teams, kind of similar to the NFC West, where we have, and I would honestly give the nod to the Bears as far as being the best overall team as far as ratings, because of their defense is stellar. And the Packers, you kind of never know what you're going to get as far as, can we stop the run? Can we stop the pass? Clearly, against the Bengals and a young quarterback and a young wide receiver, they tore us up. So, I mean, the NFC North, it's going to be very interesting, I feel like, for who's going to make the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I mean, this next week is going to be fun down the stretch. Packers already hold a 1-game lead over Chicago. If they can get the win, they take a 2-game lead and get the head-to-head advantage. So next week is going to be an interesting spot. Chicago gets the win, they even up the division, make that race closer. Packers get the win, they're off to the races. So yeah, next week is going to be a really fun game. Moving on next here into
the shootout of the century.
Yeah, this was a very fun game to watch. Cleveland on the road in LA. Chargers get the win 47-42.
Did you happen to see the stat before the game? Teams were 401 and 0, scoring 400 yards and no turnovers.
Yeah.
Lost. There was like 12 different records that got broke that game.
Yeah. I mean, just the fourth quarter alone, Browns scored 15, Chargers scored 26. That's a 41-point quarter.
No defense.
Yeah, no defense showed up.
Pass rush couldn't get home.
Justin Herbert, just shy of 400 yards on the day, 4 touchdowns. He puts himself in that MVP conversation on the year, leading his Chargers to a 4-1 season.
When you think about it last year, too, going back to how many 1-score games did they lose last year? Where
Like
if
9.
they would have won, that's 9 more wins on their record. They're winning the games this year that they would have lost last year. Mm-hmm. They're not making that one extra mistake that has fucked them out, except for the Dallas game. They fucked themselves out of being 5-0 right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, their pass attack, they have guys, Jared Cook, the vet tight end, he gets that big catch for 29 yards to kind of break that game open at the end. Keenan Allen's going to do what he's going to do. Mike Williams
going to do what he's going to
do. He's breaking out to be one of the top receivers in the NFL. Through week 5, people are finally starting to put some respect on his name, because first couple of weeks, he's doing good. Oh, it's week 5 and he's still putting up the same numbers. All right, let's take a look at this guy. So Chargers really they gave up 42 points in a big shootout, so their defense kind of struggled, but nonetheless, 4-1 is 4-1.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, until Herbert got there, he was not a main target at all for Phillip Rivers. So I feel like a lot of people forgot about who he is. Now that they have a quarterback that airs it out and doesn't turn it over, this is a high-powered offense, being able to put up 47 on a very good defense.
Yeah.
And the same for the Browns, being able to put up 42 points on a very good defense. Granted, you still lost, but hey, putting that many points up is phenomenal in the NFL.
Yeah. Moving on to the next game here in the NFC East showdown. Giants on the road in Dallas. Dallas gets the win 44-20. As we talked about, Giants just riddled with injuries. Daniel Jones goes down with an injury. In steps Mike Glennon, who's been just
in and out of the NFL.
Yeah. Saquon Barkley only had 2 touches on the day before he went out with his ankle injury. Cowboys route.
Tony, fucking their young guy who's having a phenomenal day, throws a punch and gets tossed. Mm-hmm. Like, that game was just doomed doomed from the start for the Giants. And I feel like the Cowboys are earning respect from other people around the league now, as they're looking like they could be a legitimate team this year.
Mm-hmm. And again, as we talked about a handful of times, Week 11 is their first time facing a 2020 playoff team, so they still have 5 weeks to go. They could be 9-10 or 9-1 at that point when they get there.
And maybe even clinched the East by that point.
Yeah, depending. Yeah, exactly. Depending on how the rest of them are looking.
Washington 2-3, Eagles 2-3, Giants 1-4. And that's funny. I saw a graphic too. It was the New York Giants and Jets combined were like 38 and like 107 in the last like 20 years. Like it's bad.
Yikes.
It's really bad. I forget. Yeah.
And that was funny. I love seeing those stats where they're always like, "Oh, New York football is in a tough spot," and then you always see the whoever's the head of the Buffalo Bills social medias. New York football isn't all that bad. Like, what? It's always like, "Oh, New York City football," but it's like technically Buffalo's New York football. You can't count them out of those statistics.
And they're the only ones that actually play in New York.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
the
the other ones
Giants
are
and the Jets
East
play in
Rutherford, New
New
Jersey.
Jersey. Yeah.
Yeah, moving on to our last couple of games of the day of Sunday here. NFC West matchup. Niners on the road in Arizona. Arizona moves to 5-0 on the year. What'd you see out of Trey Lance? His first start.
Rookie, still made some mistakes. Still understand why they kept Jimmy G and why Jimmy G is going to be their starter. But great. Looks like he has great abilities to be able to mold, especially if he has time to learn. I feel like he could potentially be a great quarterback in the future. His time is not now, though. And then for the Cardinals, first game where Kyler Murray kind of struggles. Their defense holds it together, and do they go undefeated? Like, they are a scary team. They have it all.
I mean, when you're in the NFC West, to say, "Oh, a team's going to win," is going to sweep their division, like that, sweeping your division in the NFL is tough alone. Being in the toughest division in football and sweeping, that's even that much more impressive. I mean, I guess going down the stretch, the Cardinals have played the 49ers and the Rams now. I'm not sure if they played the Seahawks yet.
They don't until November 21st. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games. Russ could be back at that point.
So, but I mean, again, the Seahawks are in a tough spot, but they still have 4 more games to play against a really tough division. I feel like somebody's going to get the job done, whether they can get Kyler Murray to slip up one more time.
I mean, they play a for real team this weekend in the Browns. They play the Browns, Texans, who are no easy walkover, Packers, then the Niners again. Panthers, I think they got a W there. Seahawks, Bears, Rams. I mean, they have a tough schedule, and they do have the Cowboys on there as well, January 2nd. But from what I'm seeing right now, I don't see how a team stops them from winning a game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just don't.
I mean, you hold the Cardinals to 17 points. Hats off to your defense, but you can only put up 10 points yourself. So you got to put together a full game on both sides of the ball, and until a team can do that, I mean, whatever the 49ers did to expose that offense, only hold them to 17. Hopefully, other teams can kind of feed off of that, but that Cardinals defense as a whole still, I mean, phenomenal, especially with the acquisitions they made in the offseason.
Yeah, absolutely.
And moving into our last Sunday game here, last night we had the Bills on the road visiting the Kansas City Chiefs. Bills get the win after an hour rain delay, 38-20. Bills are the real deal. Chiefs are frauds. That's all I really have to say about this game.
I should say the Chiefs, they're struggling right now. Obviously, everybody knows the Chiefs are the Chiefs. It's still early yet in the season. You can't officially write them off yet. But as of right now, yes, their defense is historically the worst defense in the history of the NFL through the worst 5 weeks. just bad all around. They can't get a stop when they have them on 3rd and 16, 3rd and long. Couldn't get a stop. Seems that every time that they did get a stop, they had a penalty. Josh Allen, MVP. He's the front runner. He's the front runner for the MVP. No question about it. This guy is the real deal. I see the Bill. I don't see a team standing in the Bills' way in the AFC.
Again, especially in that division in the AFC East, the Jets, the Pats, the Dolphins, they could sweep their division easily. And yeah, going back to Josh Allen, a game where again the hour rain delay, field's wet, it's raining.
And the tiniest away locker room in all the NFL. There's only 2 toilets in there.
Really?
Yeah, I guess it's like a gym class. It's like a high school classroom, but like 2 of them for a whole NFL team with 2 bathrooms in there.
Huh. That's hilarious. But yeah, I mean, Josh Allen, again, with the weather, with the lead, you think, oh, let's just hand the ball off. No, we're going to keep the air attack going and pummel these guys. We remember the AFC Championship last year. It was just one of those revenge games, and it wasn't close. 18 points. That's a 3-score game.
Yeah, and after the game, hearing Patrick Mahomes talk about the Bills' defense, saying that this is the first time in his career being in the NFL that he's seen some of the coverages, some of the schemes that were thrown at him by that Bills defense. And just going back, this all started with Tampa Bay's defense against Kansas City in the Super Bowl. Sitting back, 2 safeties back, not allowing the big play to hit, and forcing Patrick Mahomes to have to play patient and run the ball. And the Steelers ended up taking that recipe and dishing that to the Bills week 1. They only blitzed on 1 play. And then last night, the stats on that, the Bills only blitzed 1 play out of the 64, and they dropped into coverage and just rushed their 3 or 4 defensive linemen and played coverage. And with these quarterbacks, you know how to pass. It forces them to have to take a chance at some point. You're going to have to fit it in a tight window and hope that you make a mistake, or you're just in the right spot and making a better play. But I feel like this is the new motto that we're going to be seeing, because the NFL is a copycat league. Whatever works, other teams take that and use it to their style. I feel like this is going to be a defensive strategy that we're going to be seeing going forward, as D-line just go and everybody's going to drop and play coverage on these amazing quarterbacks and wide receivers, because that's the only way that you could stop them. Because going back to that Packers-Lions game, talk about them playing the 2 safeties and Manning explaining how difficult that is to stay patient and just handing the ball off and not wanting to throw it. But the second that they went man coverage, Rodgers takes a shot down the field in for a touchdown. And that's 2 plays where, if they just would have stayed what they were doing, it's that patience on both. It's that chess match. Who's going to be more patient and who's going to take that strike. So I feel like this is going to be a thing. I feel like the points are going to start coming down all across the board. We're going to be seeing tight games for the rest of the year, including tonight.
Yeah, and the last play in the Chiefs game, Flash Gordon back in the NFL gets a catch for 11 yards. Again, kind of a quiet night for him, but again, great to see him back in the league again. And yeah, going into tonight's game, we have the Indianapolis Colts on the road in Baltimore, a tale of opposite teams, 1-3 out 3-1. I mean, can the Colts defense hang in with Lamar?
I'm saying they do. I think the Ravens are still one of those teams that has question marks, as well as Lamar lost them the game basically with his turnovers on Monday Night Football week 1 against the Raiders. Granted, they have bounced back since then, but you're facing a desperate Colts team who 2 sprains or 3 sprains is now back to 1. So he's got an ankle. They went and they got a big win last week, so they're riding high. I don't know. I feel like the Colts are going to come ready to play. I feel like Jonathan Taylor is going to have a big night. And if Lamar Jackson can't control his turnovers, I should say if they turn over the ball, I feel like the Colts are going to win the game. If Carson Wentz stays alive. Because that is a tough defense to play against.
Yeah, I agree. The Ravens again at 3-1, very similar to the Packers going into this week. Yes, you're 3-1, but also you're inconsistent. Where you get held out, Packers get held to 3 points week 1, and their defense is hit and miss every week. Baltimore Ravens, one of the worst pass attacks in football, and a lot of injuries on the defensive side, especially on the back end, so where they give up big plays over the top. Especially in a game where you're on the road, Baltimore crowd's going to be loud. The run attack is going to be the way to go. That's what's going to quiet down the crowd. That's what's going to wear out the defense. So I think it's going to be a closer game than whatever it's projected to be. I don't even know what the spread,
Baltimore by 7.
And that's including their 3.5 point home, default.
That's automatically figured in.
So, yeah, I mean, I think it's 6 right to that. It's going to be a 1-score game. Not very high scoring. I don't think
46.5 is what the over-under is.
Yeah, that's not very high. That's
25-21.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to say, just to throw a score out there, I'm going to say Ravens win a close one, 28-24.
And I think the Colts are going to riding that high from last week, playing desperate, knowing that they got to win a couple games to get back in the hunt here. I think they win 21-17. No. 24-21. 24-21. It's going to be a field goal.
Sounds good. Yeah, and that wraps up the NFL for this week. Again, another great weekend of football that happened. Yeah, we'll be breaking down tonight's game on Wednesday. Going into some NBA news here, one of the ongoing things in the NBA offseason is Ben Simmons' situation in Philadelphia. Philadelphia withholds his pay, kind of putting it into an escrow fund, saying if you show up, you can have it. Otherwise, you're going to keep deducting your fines from it. Supposedly, the 76ers are moving towards a Ben Simmons return. Supposedly, the two sides have been in conversations more than over the past couple months, supposedly progressing. Things are looking good. So yeah, I mean, obviously nothing's for sure until it happens, but at least for the time being, looks like they might get him back in a Philadelphia uniform to either try to work something out or to try to dish him out somewhere else.
Oh yeah, how that whole thing went. I feel like both sides are realizing that how this whole thing went down makes both of us look bad, where if we try to mend this thing and make it seem like everything's all right, we're going to get more in return, / you're going to get to go to a better team, because it's not going to make Ben Simmons look like he's such a terrible player, terrible teammate to be around. And then at the same time, it's not going to make the Philadelphia 76ers look like assholes on doing what they did. So I feel like this is in best interests of both teams. And yeah, I feel like we're going to see him back, but I feel like we are going to see him moved.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and then the other, I guess, kind of thing that's been trending over the past couple of weeks is Kyrie Irving's status with the Nets. He does return to practice this week, as the Nets are going to be preparing to play with him for only half the season. The team found a loophole, as a practice facility is listed as a private office building rather than an indoor gym, which allows him to stay with the team. So
it's not public. Any privately owned place is technically you can go in. It's all public operations, which obviously stadiums and stuff are public.
Yeah. So I guess good for the Nets there. But
Hey,
again,
if they can make it work, good for them.
yeah, but again, as other analysts have talked about, I know Stephen A. Smith has been harping on it a lot. Is James Harden, KD? They're both ballers. They don't care about the off the court stuff. They just want to win games and play ball. So if Kyrie is going to be standing in the way of that, I mean, KD is almost like a second head coach on that team. Where if he goes to the front office and says, "Hey, we can't win games like this. Get what you can for him. He's got to go." Like, then the Nets are going to do that. Which again, KD, as much as I'm sure he has a good relationship with Kyrie, he's not there to make friends. He's there to play basketball. And if Kyrie gets in the way of that, then I could see him getting rid of him. But at least for the time being, it looks like both sides have figured out a way to allow him to play.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that works out, because KD also has said that he's hopeful that Kyrie will get it and that he will be playing. So we'll see what happens. And my only NBA point is J.R. Smith is set to play in his first college golf tourney for North Carolina A&T this coming weekend.
That's awesome. I so like every time you see something on him, it's just
he made it as a freshman walk-on to the team, and he qualified for this tournament by 1 stroke. Because it says all teams golfers in college golf must qualify for each tournament in practice rounds unless he or she has finished first or second in the previous tournament. And it said he qualified by 1 stroke. They're playing the Phoenix Invitational, the Alamance Country Club golf course. So go get a dub. That's all I got for basketball.
Sounds good. Then moving into our MLB talk here, then with the postseason in full swing. To recap some of the series so far, our Milwaukee Brewers are in trouble after dropping 2 straight. They win game 1 and now will face elimination going forward. They have another game in Atlanta tomorrow, and they must win tomorrow to force a game 5 in Milwaukee. Before we went live, we looked. The pitching probables are still to be determined, though. You're kind of back to the top of your rotation, to where if Burns or Woodruff are ready to go, it's your season's on the line. You got to put one of them in. In the other NLDS, the Giants got out to a 1-0 series lead after a dime outing from pitcher Logan Webb. The Dodgers bounced back in game 2 with a 9-2 rout as the series heads down to LA for a game tonight. Over in the AL, the Astros came out hot, taking the first 2 games. And then yesterday, the White Sox avoid the sweep with a 12-6 win. And due to weather today, that game will be postponed and played tomorrow as the White Sox look to stay alive. And then lastly here, the Rays got a dominant game 1 at 5-0 win over the Red Sox, but that since then it has been all Boston, getting a 14-6 win in game 2 and a 6-4 win in extra innings last night. Not without any controversy, though, for anyone who kind of watched how that game folded out. A ball that bounced into the outfield went off of a player and went over the fence, which later got ruled as a ground rule double, which allowed the runners to not come home. And then at the bottom of the 13th, Boston would go on to hit a 2-run walk-off homer. So, but after the game, the home plate umpire broke out the rule book and said word for word the situation that happened, how it's written in the rule book is how they addressed it. So good for them on the spot to realize what the rule was and call it correctly, even though obviously the Rays thought it should have went otherwise. The rule book is the rule book. So yeah, that's all that's going on. Again, Brewers game finished up today 3-0. Atlanta leads 2-1 in that. And then again, the Astros Sox game tomorrow. Tonight, Rays look to close out the series, and Giants, Dodgers look to see who's going to take that crucial 2-1 lead in that division or in that series.
You mean Boston's looking to close out the series?
Yeah. Who did I say?
Rays.
Oh,
I mean, they have a chance to get back in it. I mean, and I think that they had to face Boston's toughest two pitchers their last few games. They only have two really good aces. So this is a game for the Rays to get back in. And then, yeah, Giants Dodgers, that's going to be a good game to watch.
for sure. And we'll be breaking it all down on Wednesday. So who's moving forward to the ALCS or NLCS, or if we're going to be moving into a lot of game fives. What is going on over on the ice?
So just not a whole bunch. Preseason is just finished up yesterday. Today is an off day. Tomorrow the NHL season begins. First game with the Pittsburgh Penguins against the reigning Stanley Cup champions Tampa Bay Lightning. And then the Seattle Kraken open their inaugural season on the road at Vegas Golden Knights at 9 p.m. tomorrow night. Both of those should be great games. Other news outside of that, Chicago Blackhawks bring back defenseman Eric Gustafsson on a 1-year deal. That's a huge lockdown for them. Tampa Bay Lightning extend head coach John Cooper, 3-year deal. So awesome for him. New York Rangers locked down Mika Zibanejad, one of their top players, to an 8-year, $68 million contract. So that's huge for them as well. As the Jack Eichel news, the Rangers were kind of one of those teams that was potentially in the market to get him. Now with this deal locking down him, I don't think he's going to be going anywhere. Sidney Crosby returns to practice way ahead of schedule with his surgery that he had. Status for tomorrow's opener is unknown. He said he's unsure at this point in time after practice today whether he would be on the ice. And then Alex Ovechkin leaves Washington Capitals preseason finale with lower body injury, hoping to be back for their home opener. I do believe that is that's on Wednesday against the Capitals, or against the Rangers, excuse me. So he's hoping to be back on Wednesday. Other than that, just shout out to the NHL again. They're adding 10 women to the American Hockey League officiating roster. Working them into the games, and it won't be too long before we see a female out there reffing in the NHL out on the main stage. So shout out to the NHL to continue to move forward with that whole thing with empowering women with jobs and whatnot. And yeah, I'm super excited to watch hockey. Can't wait for it to be back tomorrow night.
Yeah, and again, basketball back this week as well. Really one of the best times of the year. Late October, playoff baseball, NFL in the heat of the season, and hockey and basketball getting underway. So, yeah, always a great time of year. And then moving over to the college football world to highlight some really big games that happened this weekend. On Friday, Cincinnati, again, a team that's been dominant all year, got a big win against Notre Dame. Looks to try to stay perfect on the year. 52-3 over Temple. AP polls have them up at 3. Red River Showdown, Oklahoma, Texas. What a game. Texas at one point led 28-7. Spencer Rattler gets benched. Caleb Williams comes in and gets their team the dub, 55-48 on a last second touchdown by Kennedy Brooks. Yeah, it was a crazy game to watch. Really thought Texas was going to pull through. Oklahoma again avoids yet another upset and moves up to number 4 in the college football rankings. Let's see here.
Yeah, speaking of the Alabama game, unfortunately, there was some violence that happened over the game. 2 guys were arguing over at which team was better. And in the final couple of minutes at a house party somewhere in the suburbs of Birmingham, homeowner asked the people to leave the house. And it turns out one of them ended up shot several times in the stomach and ended up dying around 3:20 Sunday morning. And it says the shooter fled the scene. Suspect is still at large, even though the homeowner told the identity of the person that was over there. But that's crazy that at like so sad.
Yeah. All over.
A fucking college football game that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, has zero impact on your life as an individual.
Unless you literally bet everything you own on the game.
Yeah.
That's your own dumbass fault.
Yeah. Yeah, moving to some other games here. Number 10, BYU plays host to Boise State. Looks to stay perfect on the year. Unfortunately, Boise State gets the upset on the road, 26-17. BYU falls to number 19 in the rankings. Another team pulled off or avoided an upset. Wake Forest up to number 16 in the AP polls. If I remember correctly, this is the highest in school history that they've ever been ranked. They've been quietly a really good team all year. Again, kind of in a division where they're not playing a lot of ranked teams, but nonetheless, winning football games, 6-0 on the year. Over to the Big Ten, one of the bigger games of the week. Penn State on the road in Iowa, number 4 versus number 3. Iowa wins the nail biter 23-20 and moves up to number 2 in the AP polls. Penn State falls to just 7, so still not out of it there. Big concern for Penn State, though, as quarterback Sean Clifford went out in the game with an injury. And that was kind of the turning point there for that game. He was having a kind of a rough game, only 146 yards, 2 interceptions, but still, when your starting QB goes down, it's kind of a shock to the entire team that they all got to work through. So, but Iowa defense coming in clutch when they need it most, getting 4 turnovers on the day. Great to see a Big Ten team hanging out in the top.
Yeah, and then some Wisconsin Badgers news. Redshirt freshman running back Jalen Berger has been dismissed from the Wisconsin football program. Turns out heading into the season, he had a chance to be the top starting running back, but lost his job to Ches Baluzzi, who's been getting the bulk of the carries along with Braylon Allen. The school did not specify any reason for the dismissal. He was not dismissed for any off-the-field issues, but it just says, so he basically quit the team because he wasn't getting carries. And that's another reason why the transfer portal is bullshit, because you have kids like this who don't want to fight through any adversity, and I'm going to quit, and I'll go be the top running back at Coastal Carolina next year.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess sticking with the Badgers, 24-0 win over Illinois. They get back in the win column after a couple losses. Still remain unranked. I mean, Badger football has been tough to watch this year.
That's why I don't watch it anymore.
Yeah, I watched, what's that part of the game that I watched? Oh, I watched them score their first touchdown. That was it. And then after the game, I looked at on my phone at what the score was. It was 24-0, and then that's what it finished out to be. So, yeah, I mean, Badger football maybe next year. And then the biggest upset of the week: unranked Texas A&M plays host to Nick Saban's Crimson Tide. They get the win 41-38 on a last-second field goal as time expired. Head coach of Texas A&M becomes the first former Nick Saban assistant to beat the old man. Nick was 24-0 up until this game. And it's kind of funny, leading up to this game back in May, there was a reporter that was talking to the Texas A&M coach and he said that, we're going to beat them this year. And Nick Saban laughed about it and said, what, in golf? And they laughed about it. Now he's on the wrong side of that joke. So Crimson Tide, a bunch of streaks snapped, 19-game win streak. Again, Nick Saban's 24-0 streak against former assistants. and Alabama was, I believe, 109 wins win streak against unranked teams. That streak is now snapped as well. So
Yeah, the last time that happened was Johnny Manziel when he led the unranked Texas A&M Aggies and he beat Nick Saban back in 2012. Yeah, it's funny how it was Texas A&M both times that like started the streak and ended the streak.
that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, the college football world gets shaken up a little bit. Alabama falls to 5. Obviously, still has a chance to get in the college football playoffs. As they
Georgia's won.
Yeah, Georgia's won. So Alabama can still get their foot in the door when an SEC championship comes, and they have to play Georgia. So, I'm not sure what Alabama's. I'm looking forward at their schedule here. They play Mississippi State unranked, Tennessee unranked, LSU unranked, New Mexico State unranked. Their final remaining ranked game is against number 17 Arkansas, and they end the year with the Iron Bowl in Auburn. So,
Oklahoma doesn't play any more ranked teams until their last game, which is Oklahoma State. Georgia, who do they got? They got a tough sledding. 11 Kentucky this weekend, followed by 20 Georgia. Those are not easy games. And they're on the road at the Swamp. And then
is it possible we could see an unbeaten team in the top 4?
Cincinnati's going undefeated, dude.
Oh yeah, that's right. Could they be number 1 if Georgia takes a loss?
if they do, well, I don't see Iowa. I don't see Iowa losing unless somehow we fucking beat them. Which is a joke. Exactly.
Yeah.
Which ain't going to happen because that team's unreal. But conference games are conference games. You know, when you're dealing with teenagers like that, you never know. They could have been partying too hard the night before. So many different reasons why college games are so much more crazy and fun to watch because you never know what's going to happen. Like gambling, college is where a lot of people stay away from because of that reason. They're kids. You don't know what to fucking expect out of a kid.
Yeah.
We're an athlete who's on a regimen getting paid to do what you can kind of expect and know what they're going to do week in and week out, where you have no idea if this kid has failed 4 tests the day that they got to hop on the bus. You know what I mean? Like, could be having a rough time.
Mm-hmm. I guess one game I skipped over. Well, I mean, 2. I guess I make mention of Georgia getting the win over Auburn, 34-10, and then the other Big Ten game, Michigan avoids the upset to stay perfect on the year for the first time in over a decade, getting a last-second field goal over the Nebraska Cornhuskers, 32-29. Jim Harbaugh kind of turning the ship around there in Michigan when he was on the hot seat. So,
Michigan State still undefeated? Yes.
Yeah, they are. They beat Rutgers 31-13. They're up to number 10 in the polls now as well.
Big Ten, we got a handful of good teams.
Yeah, there's 4? Yeah, 4 of the top 10 teams are Big Ten in college. Where's Ohio State? 5 of the. So there's
5 of the top 10 teams are Big Ten, and without Wisconsin.
Iowa at 2, Ohio State at 6,
Penn State 7, Michigan at 8, and Michigan State 10.
10. Yeah.
And usually Wisconsin's somewhere up there, but not this year.
Yeah.
Coastal Carolina, though. Sorry for dissing you guys. You guys are 6-0.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's tough being one of those teams. Yeah, you have a perfect record that they might be on a 20-win streak, but when you're playing in like the American like Athletic Conference or like All America or Big Sky or like whatever, like whatever it might be, it's tough to crack that top 10 come the end of the year when there's teams ahead of you that are playing a tougher schedule. I mean, even looking at Coastal Carolina, do they play any? Yeah. Appalachia State unranked, Troy unranked, Georgia Southern unranked, Georgia State unranked, Texas State unranked, South Alabama unranked. So they could go undefeated. They, depending on what happens ahead of them, they could crack the top 10 maybe, but they're not going to be a college football playoff come the end of the year.
It's the same for St. Mary's. SMU at 23. They're undefeated, and they're one of their second to last game is against Cincinnati. So if they're undefeated and Cincinnati stays undefeated up to that point and they beat the number 3 team, does that pull an SMU who's like at 23 into the top 4? Like like this year is insane.
Like it sounds unrealistic
because Alabama and Ohio State lost really throws a huge wrench into everything. And Oregon losing after them dominating Ohio State, like
Penn State at 4 losing a game.
Oklahoma. I'm still not certain they're gonna go undefeated.
I can see that Oklahoma State game, final game of the year, that being the team that finally exposes
they're both
them.
Undefeated, right? Yeah, they're both undefeated right now, and they could be meeting each other. Yeah, at that point. I mean, depends who's quarterback. Spencer Rattler's the quarterback. They're not going to win. If their backup's quarterback, they're going to win. And I mean, how rough of a time is it for him? I don't know if you happen to see any of it. Saturday during the game, they kept like panning over to him like on the sideline. Like, you have your own student section chanting, "Fuck you, Spencer." Like, and you're supposed to be the Heisman coming into the year. You still win. You're still 6-0, and everybody hates you. Like, what do you got to do?
Yeah, it's a tough spot to be. I mean, I don't know. Like,
it's one of the most awkward things, weird things that we've ever seen in sports.
Literally
this guy has your team undefeated. You're 6-0, and everybody on campus hates you, and you're the starting quarterback. It's almost as big as like a Tebow.
As far as
how many people hate him? Like, so many people hate him. It's like so popular to like hate him.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the opposite of like having fans. It's like you have a whole university that hates you.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it is a very weird situation over there in Oklahoma, but I guess until they lose a game, I mean, I don't know. Maybe the hate starts to dwindle down if they can stay perfect.
Good game this weekend, though. Kentucky and Georgia.
Yeah, Kentucky.
11.
Having one of the best years they've ever had.
Their quarterback is a sleeper for the Heisman. I was reading. He's been having a phenomenal year, and I guess people have been sleeping on this Kentucky team for a while now.
Yeah, I mean, up until now, nobody's ever really wanted to talk about them. And I mean, playing number 1 Georgia, they're going to be in the spotlight come Saturday. So, I mean,
they lost their top defensive tackle, who's a 5-star, out for the season. So that hurts your team.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's Georgia by a million is how Vegas has it right now. But I mean, in college football, like you said, guy has a bad day, stayed out too late. You never really know. I mean, if the game's in Kentucky, I think it's a closer game, but it's in Georgia, so that makes it tough. But again, it's football.
Yep.
So yeah, then wrapping up our college football talk here, then moving over to one of the last points here today. Over the weekend, in the boxing world, Fury Wilder 3 lived up to the hype as Fury remains the heavyweight world champ as he knocks out Wilder in the 11th round.
And then continues to go out and fucking raves.
Yeah, with Steve Aoki. Yeah.
Like, people are saying this guy is one of the most freakish athletes that we've ever seen.
Especially the way he turned
what he's
around.
Been able to do in the ring, and then still being able to go out and still have the energy like that never even happened.
Mm-hmm. And especially in a fight that he really did the biggest test ever, being knocked down twice in one round for the first time ever in his boxing career. I mean, in the end, stamina. I mean, coming down to stamina is what won it, because you get to the 11th round and you get a knockout, and then, like you said, you're all partying with Steve Aoki at a club afterwards. Like, that's 100% stamina. If you go 11 rounds in a boxing fight and then you're partying until 2 or 3 in the morning. It's funny too, I guess, sticking with that, as there's more talk and controversy around Jake Paul and Tommy Fury, his younger brother, fighting. Jake Paul keeps throwing out more money. Offered him another $500,000 this past week to sign the deal and make it happen. And then Tyson Fury came out and said that if Tommy loses to Jake Paul, he's going to have to change his name because it's disrespectful to the Fury name. So there's a lot riding on that fight if it does happen.
It ain't gonna happen.
Yeah,
Any true worthy person ain't gonna take that fight. Because if you take that fight, it makes you look bad. Like, oh, you're gonna fight a YouTuber. Like, if you have any business in the game of being a top professional fighter, you wouldn't waste your fucking breath on it.
No, and
what happens
obviously
if you
it's
get
not
hurt?
about the money.
What happens if you get hurt and your career's over? Like,
and it's not about the money at that point.
I really want to see Spit and Chicklets Biz Nasty step in the ring with him and fucking piss pound his face in. He called him out for a rough and rowdy up in Calgary. So,
yeah, there's a lot of people who have been calling him out, and I know. I mean, even they want to run it back with Woodley as well. He got his tattoo of "I love Jake Paul" on his finger, so he came through on his end of the deal to, if he got the tattoo, that they'd run it back. So, I mean, if Tommy Fury doesn't decide to go through with the fight, maybe we see him and Woodley back in over the winter sometime here.
Yeah, definitely. I ain't gonna watch it though. I'm over this fucking Jake Paul kid.
Yeah, I've never actually watched a fight of his. Like, I've never paid for it.
I watched the first one.
I just watched the highlights afterwards. I'm like, okay.
I watched the very first one only because it was on Triller, which was supposed to be this brand new network that it was its first event. So I wanted to see how that was, and it was more like a music concert than it was a fight. I mean, don't get me wrong, some of it was pretty good. Like, some of the people that they had on there were really good, but it's like they spent way too much on the production than the actual event instead of it, and it lost me after that.
Yeah,
I'll never waste another $1 on Jake Paul. Unless it's Biz Nasty stepping in the ring. I would support that guy.
Yeah, sounds good. I don't know if you had any other points to throw out there from the weekend.
Not really. I mean, turns out Green Bay's Packer coach, special teams coach, is coming out and taking some of the blame for Crosby's misses. I guess they have a special teams. Let's see what he said. Oh, looks like it just maybe a couple bad holds, couple bad snaps that just weren't exactly how they were supposed to be.
And it said the protection issues, and special teams word operation is code snap for hold and protection. And apparently this dates back to the block week 4 against the Steelers when that happened as well, to where just their kicking has
when they actually blocked it, but it wasn't. Yeah. So shout out to LaFleur for coming out and speaking on it, saying especially for owning it and not leaving Crosby, especially somebody in that position, a kicker. You're riding high or you're riding low. And after missing 4 kicks, you're probably pretty low. Winning it, you ended on a high, but now you're getting the moral and the support from your team saying, no, it wasn't just his fault, the blocking and all, helping him feel better. And I feel like we're hitting stride right now, getting Big Bach back next week. Yeah, that's all I had.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for stopping by for the 100th episode. This was a long one. We had a lot to unpack, but push through it. It's definitely well worth it. And yeah, we appreciate all the love and support from you guys continuously that we still get every day. Yeah, as a lot of games are underway, especially with the postseason, got a lot you pay attention to here. So we will have a lot to unpack for you guys on Wednesday. So see you guys then.
See you guys on Wednesday.